A friend called and asked me what it's like. Just jokingly, I said my life is a roller coaster to and from hell. Just back and forth. I go to work and every now and then come home and go to work, and just coming home is a relief. Going back to work is just it's difficult. It's pain. It hurts.
Yeah, the best part of the day is the drive home. The drive home is the best. You can turn on the radio. You don't have to worry about anything generally, unless you get paged on the way home.
Or if you're falling asleep on the way home. Steve last night.
I was post-call last night. Was I post-call?
Yeah.
It's another thing about residency. You don't know what day it is. You forget what time it is.
It doesn't matter.
I had to buy a new watch because I couldn't remember what month I was in half the time.
But the point is, it doesn't matter because you're in every day. You're the same length of time every day.
Yeah.
What difference does it make what day it is?
And I almost crashed my car about 3 or 4 times. I fell asleep at the wheel in a traffic jam. Woke up, my car was moving. I'm looking at the car in front of me. I almost smashed that car. I ran off the road. And luckily I haven't smashed my car yet, but I know...
I already hit a guardrail.
You ran up on a guardrail?
I hit a guardrail did I told you about that? At 85 miles an hour. I was lucky as heck though, because I just glanced it. But it was one of those blinks where I fell asleep. And I think we've got to be the biggest dangers on the road.
It was so bad when I was working at the VA, I was falling asleep coming in. I was so sleep deprived, it didn't matter coming home anymore. I was falling asleep going in. I'd stop my car and put my head down and catch a few more winks in the parking lot. Yeah, life as a resident is less than desirable. I find myself losing I get bitter a lot more than I used to. Things I never thought would come out of my mouth start coming out of my mouth, and I really start resenting some people, and it bothers me, but...
I completely agree with that. As a student, friends and nurses and everyone said, "Oh, don't ever change. You're a nice guy. Stay that way." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no problem." And now I just see when I'm getting crushed with work, the pager just keeps going off, and it's just all these problems and pain and misery and just dealing with all of it all the time. Being the lowest on the ladder, you get hit with the calls first, which then you filter up and you try and handle what you can, and then pass on what you can't. But being the filter as a first-year resident really makes it. I mean, like Steve said, I've become bitter, more brazen. I went into this field with the idea that I want to help people, and now I resent people. What was it the other day? We said we're mad at people for burning themselves.
Every time I get a call, I get mad. I'm like, why did you burn yourself? What is your problem? And you start getting angry at these people because they're idiots for burning themselves. But it's not their fault half the times, but that's the mindset you start getting into.
I'm a little more bitter and callous towards this patient population because they don't care for themselves. It's that's part of the reason maybe I'm bitter, because you're just gonna, sure, you can take the bullet out of this guy's heart and patch him up, and let me stress that I'm not the one taking the bullet out of the heart. I'm the one managing the patient on the floor afterwards. It's my seniors, the attendings, and so on that do that part. But we patch them up, we ship them out, we deal with them for months. Let's say in the intensive care unit, go out and they'll just come back next week. They'll come back drunk and shot, or whatever it was that brought them in, it just brings them right back. So that part makes you bitter. It's the patients that I get emotionally attached to are the patients that do care about themselves and do care about their recovery, have a family support system, and those
remind you of say your family or somebody that identifies with somebody who you care about.
You want to do well for them because they really want to get better.
Right. So here you fix these people up to go right back on the street.
They don't care.
To do the same thing, to put them right back in. And
they'll spit at you after you've just sewn up a big laceration. They'll still spit at you and yell.
I've woken up delirious. I don't even know it. My wife tells me I do all these weird things when I come home and literally pass out. I've fallen asleep eating at home. And then I wake up, my pager's going off, I'm calling people on the phone. I don't remember what I tell them on the phone. So it's bad all the way around.
At least the support that he gets from his wife is good. I have 2 cats, but there's only so much pleasure I could get from that.
My wife is merely somebody who I climb in bed next to. It's just a body that lays in bed.
Does your dishes and your laundry
Yeah,
too.
and that's she.
And cooks.
Just by her cleaning, just because she's a woman doesn't mean that she has to do these things, but she just does them to help me out. Just washing the clothes, making dinner, making sure the bills are paid is such a relief. Oh, it takes the biggest load off because I know I don't have to worry about nitpicking things at home.
Yeah.
And man, it helps me out quite a bit.
Depending on how the night goes, I was able to get out of here yesterday evening. Got home. I was so fortunate I got to do some laundry. All of a sudden, I lay down 11 o'clock last night. Lay down to go to bed, and I hung my pager on my shirt so I could hear it when I fell asleep. The minute I turned the light out, the pager went off, and a nurse is telling me that the patient on the floor has bloody sputum coming out of the mouth. What am I going to do but not come? I mean, I have to come in. I have to come and see and evaluate that. I can't just stay at home and tell the nurse, oh, just wipe it off. I have to come and find out what's happening. So that, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night I came in, got the matter taken care of by 1. Then the decision, do I go home again or do I stay here? Fortunately, I decided to stay here. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I got called to the emergency room for a patient with burns sustained here. My friends ask me, so what's the worst thing you've seen? And I'll just tell them, ask me tomorrow and I'll tell you something new. It's just every day it's something you just never expected, and here it's a zoo, and bad things happen, and you learn to expect it.
You see, I can see the guys, their legs chopped off. I can see the bullet holes to the head with the brains coming out and people's faces bashed in. That doesn't bother me. But the other night, we had a burn. Somebody came in with a burn just to their hand here. And the nurse came down and she was pulling his skin right off, just peeling it off. That bothered me.
During surgery, when I was in a facial reconstruction surgery. Now that was something different when they did facial reconstruction, because in any other kind of surgeries you can cover everything up with sheets and all you're working with is a small little area. If it's bowel looks like bowel, looks like bowel. But if you're working on the face, it identifies it as a person. And you have to, deal with the idea that this is an individual, not just a loop of bowel or something. I know that speaking very frankly, would probably spend more time with patients I have an emotional attachment to or care about more than the guy who's spitting at me and cussing me out and telling me to get the hell out of his room. Well, fine then,
I don't know, but as far as attending to psychological needs, I do to a degree that will make the patients feel comfortable, but I don't overly indulge in psychological medicine because I'm attending to too much else to really pay attention.
Exactly what I was going to say. There's a limit. Like we said, when I was working at the other hospital last month, I would be in at 4, home whenever. And from the minute I walked through the doors, I was running. I have blisters on my feet, and I wouldn't stop sweating. I would run, and you just can't. You can't slow down. You can't stop. You'd like to.
The moment you stop to talk to a patient,
you're losing something else.
This thing goes off. This damn thing. I can't tell you how many times I've almost taken this and whipped it at the wall. I've come very close. And at the other hospital, I was wearing 4 of them. At one time, I was wearing 4 of them. I was covering for another doctor while they were in surgery, and I had 2 of mine for the hospital because they're on their own paging system. So essentially, I was covering every single surgical floor in the hospital at one time. I almost threw a few of them at the wall. And as soon as you start to talk to somebody, one of these will go off. On call there, I'm taking care of emergencies in the medical intensive care unit. This thing's going off, calling you to the surgical intensive care unit to intubate somebody while you're taking care of a life-threatening problem here. You got the ER calling you at the same time. You have nurses on your back trying to ask you things. You have a medical student over here. You have your attendings over here, and you're literally being pulled in 10 different directions. And sometimes I just feel like chewing somebody's head off because I can't handle it anymore. And It was so bad. I was at Harper one time doing a call, and I think I called. It's probably about 10 times within 4 minutes, and I just put people on the list. I said, okay, well, I'll get your central line. You're number 6 in line. You're number 10 in line. I said, there's no way I can possibly humanly get to you within the next 2 hours, but you're in line, so take a number and I'll get to you. And then I find myself, getting really angry when I answer the phone. I'm like, yes, what do you want? Yep. I didn't say, hi, this is Dr. Lyons. I got a page. I'm like, what? So, delusions.
Delusions. Yeah, I've woken up in the middle of the night and just bolted out of bed looking for a patient's chart in my room. Seriously, I mean, I've scoured the room looking for. I've called into the hospital. I once called the hospital to the person who was on call here, asking if I put in a central line into a patient, if I started a catheter underneath this patient's, a serious procedure. Because I thought I was supposed to, but for some reason I didn't remember if I did or didn't. So you wake up with these delusions, and it happens. And I found it, the more stress, the more times that happens.
My wife tells me I'll come home, she'll have the TV on, I'll be eating dinner, and after I eat dinner, I just pass out. I don't remember anything. Next thing I know, my alarm's going off. But she tells me I've been reading EKGs from the TV set, trying to read EKGs. When I talk to her as a patient. I'm like, where's the patient? I have to admit the patient. I walk around, I stumble around, trying to admit patients. I start screaming out drugs, lidocaine, no, this, and she laughs. She's in tears.
What we're talking to you is an impression from the first year resident, which means coming from someone who's fresh out of medical school. We led a sheltered life for the past 4 years being in medical school, just reading textbooks. When we were in the hospital doing clinical rotations, we had the supervision of someone like ourselves now. And for the 4th year, I had the last 3 months of my medical school off, a vacation in Europe, and it was a great time. And just getting thrust into this and expected to have some sort of magical leap in clinical knowledge between medical school and now. It's just they expect you to know how to do and treat everything, and you don't.